Thank you for attending the first PAC LA public event of 2026, exploring the theme of innovation in photography. From its invention, photography has embodied innovation. In 2026, our public events focus on both historical and contemporary innovations in the field of lens-based art. I want to acknowledge the recent passing of Dwayne Michaels, whose work expanded our understanding of the narrative conceptual framework of the photographic medium. I've been looking forward to this event with Eve Schillo since she discussed her upcoming exhibition with me on the first day of 2026. The working title, Photography Meets Sculpture, highlights the strength of female lens-based artists incorporating both practices in their art production. The exhibit will be touring Southern California starting in September 2027 as part of LACMA's Local Access Initiative. Eve Schillo, as many of you know, is an Associate Curator in the Wallis Annenberg Photography Department at LACMA. Recent projects include Golden Hour 2021-22, a celebration of California photography. In the Now, Gender and Notion in Europe 2021. Before You Now, Capturing the Self in Portraiture 2024-25, and Nature on Notice, Contemporary Art and Ecology 2025. Our program this evening is supported in part by the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors through the Department of Art and Culture and the California Arts Council. If you'd like to know more about PAC LA or wish to become a member, please take one of the cards over here. Carol Mail behind doors. Anyway, thank you very much, and without any further words from me, Eve Schillo.
Thank you. Everyone can hear me? I'm double mic'd. Thank you, Michael. I do remember inviting myself to talk on that New Year's Day party at another Michael's house. So I hadn't perfected my elevator pitch, but he said yes. Let's see, where are we? When I pitched this idea, it was still very much a working concept. I'm a little further along, except for my title, which, if you recall from the flyer, has changed yet again as of this morning. Photography, meet sculpture. This could go on forever, and in fact, I'm suggesting we don't have a Q&A, that we just brainstorm for titles, right? You guys good? Okay, well, start thinking about them. So most of you are familiar with the Local Access Initiative that Michael explained. I just want to drill down a little bit more because that would explain my venues. And actually the show starts in summer of 2027, so I'm about a year out. Photography Meets Sculpture is actually the 6th exhibition in this initiative and the 3rd one that I have done. So I have been living off-site with a very healthy budget. Thank you to Art Bridges. I can never say that enough. Art Bridges is the fundraising arm of the Museum Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art. So their focus is on American artists. I know a lot of you are going to have suggestions for me. Photography and sculpture is definitely out there in the world. They need to be American, newly American, about to be American. For this iteration, I'm mentioning that because I am hoping to have the show circle back after its tour to LACMA. It would have to be expanded per the grant terms, and it would go global. So if you are thinking of those artists that aren't American, newly American, find me afterwards, because I'm interested to see what's going on in the world with this topic. So initially, local access was really just supposed to happen during our demo and our construction, and it's been that successful that it continues. Some little sort of tangents I want to share, since all of these partners are now part of my team. The Ontario Museum of History and Art, I know no one's been there because I hadn't been there. They are a brand new partner, and it's really wonderful to see each of these community-based sites just grow. They use the LACMA bump and they get a redesign, which is what's happening in Ontario, completely redesigning their exhibition space. Cal State Northridge used the LACMA bump to get an upgrade in their lighting. So I encourage you to find all these places because they're only getting better because of the LACMA. So let's see the tour. So where did this idea come from? And are we talking about photography or sculpture or photographic sculptures? Yes, in fact, photography has wanted to be dimensional for some time now. There's several overlapping circles I'm going to talk about in the process of creating this show. The first is the obvious linchpin, the seminal 1970s show, Photography into Sculpture, curated by Peter Bunnell for MoMA. It had an extensive tour, no catalog, but a lot of eyes on, and it landed at Otis and in LA. Tangentially, the original Otis location became the Charles White Elementary School. Some of you might know that space is now a satellite for LACMA. And it's interesting because that's really a precursor to the whole idea of local access, putting art into the community. So this exhibition was so key to expanding ideas around photography that Cherry and Martin Gallery, the image on the right, restaged a partial version. I love their plywood base approach. I might copy that. This was held during the first PST festival in 2011. The focus that year was on writing LA's untold art history, 1945 to 1980. And for the uninitiated, that will give you a sense of just how important this exhibition was to the field. And to that end, it was important to Los Angeles because the exhibition was predominantly Southern California artists, artists on the West Coast, but the majority in Southern California, a sprinkling on the East Coast and some from the South. Here are a few more installation shots of the original. That's Heineken hanging out in the corner, his photo blocks. A barely discernible Daryl Curran from his gas pump series right next to him. Sorry, these are not high-res installation shots. And the other image has got two more Daryl Currans sort of hanging high. And now you're getting a sense of what I also want to incorporate, this sort of non-traditional display element. Even works on the wall are hanging in a different spot than normal. 2011, we have a different iteration of the Heineken boxes. And here's another detail. All right, slide. The next circle of the narrative is to note that that moment, that 70s moment, is actually part of our history at LACMA. Most of the Southern California artists included form a core experimental node within our collection. If you clocked the Michael Stone in the earlier installation shots, this is his take on the corner store display rack with consumable takeaway images of the Vietnam War in vacuum sealed pouches. He appears in both of the exhibitions, and we actually have 3 of these in our collection. In the center is a current image from the same series from the 1970s show, and we have a wealth of Daryl Curran's, over 100 works. And while this exact photo cube by Jerry McMillan wasn't in the 70s show, his singular lucite cubes were, along with his torn photographs, of which we have both in the collection. So I'll be including one of the stones, a surprise Daryl Curran, not this one, and the McMillan, and a few others as sort of 1970s touchstones. But really, the core of the exhibit is about where we are now with photo-hybridity. And before we leave that 70s show, sorry, I had to plug that. This Robert Cumming, I've often wondered, acting as a critic, as everyone has, of the photo show, why he wasn't included in any form, let alone this perfect one. Plurality in a pile, we are a sculpture, singularly, I am a print. So this resurfaced in a Paris show in 2023 when Robert Cumming was having a moment, as he should. So if anyone wants to help me acquire this, I'm ready. It comes with the couch, with the works on the couch, with the pillar sculpture, and the vintage photograph from the 1970s. So one final narrative, as you gaze upon this Sheila Pinkel, the circle of narratives, I wanted to share a little personal history. I studied Chinese art to begin with. Yes, I know, one long dynasty after another. That led me to an appreciation for Eastern ceramic ware, and I took ceramic studio classes. And in the East Coast, sort of in the East, ceramics is revered in a way that is much different than here, beyond its sort of purposeful vesselness. And I learned about the additive and subtractive nature of clay and all sculpture. Then I took photography, moved on from that, studio classes, and I realized it was that same language. It was positive and negative. And so this idea has been rooted in my brain since that time, since undergrad. And I'm not the first one to tackle this, but it feels like it's been waiting to have a moment in my life. So Sheila Pinkel. Check out the size of that image for that time period, 1976. I should point out, she's right on the cusp. She's not included in this show because she's working just after, but she is studying under Robert Heineken, so she's right there. But by hook or by crook, she's not finished her work in time to be included. But more importantly, if she had been included, she would have been just one of 4 female artists included. In the end, there were only 3 out of 23 artists in that 70s show. So that's indicative of the time period, I think. Just any show in the 1970s, whether it's a museum show, a gallery show, would be male-focused. So while my show is not female exclusive, I am highlighting the female makers that are making inroads. And I start with Sheila. Sheila's work is not three-dimensional yet. It at one point is three-dimensional. I feel like so many people in this room probably know about her practice, but I'm going to explain it in most basic terms. So to get this size, she's using canvas and making it photosensitive with an emulsion. And she is actually building a sculpture. She is physically creating this shape and then flashing different kinds of lights. She's really deep down into physics and trying different like X-ray lights. Then the work is picked up and she's going into a dark room. So we've got a wet solution. And as the work hits the wet solution, it flattens out and it becomes sort of a new 2-dimensional representation of its former 3-dimensional self. I call these landscapes of the mind. Sheila calls them time-space paradoxes, which I love because it's photography no longer contained by the singular decisive moment. There's a sense of temporality when you're in front of this work, and the sheer size is something you have to navigate. So we're getting, in my mind, closer to photo sculpture with this work. She's a great start point. Along with photo hybrids in the show, I'm including a range of actual capital S sculptures, which I think is what makes my focus on this show, this topic, different than previous ones. In a slightly unironic moment, the sculptural work I've selected is often installed on the wall. On the wall or in corners rather than pedestals, such as this work by Pei White. We're looking at a wall sculpture that is a tapestry by LA-based Pei White. It's actually a jacquard weave, if you're reading my captions. And similarly to Pinkel, it has the illusion of 3 dimensions. This photograph is not working to help you understand its sculptural qualities, which is another ironic moment in this topic. I've included it in the show and in today's lineup of female makers, as it began life as a digital image of foil. So a digital image of a found sculpture that then is fed into a computer-driven loom. So it's a little meta. Ours is a small version of this, which became the screen, for the Oslo Opera House. So giving you a better sense, this is a much better photograph of the dimensional work. So we're building towards 3 dimensions. Sue Kim, working in LA and teaching at Otis. For her, photography really is, to use a sculptural term, a subtractive medium. We all know that what's left out of the frame is as important as what we include. Sue takes this idea even further. In this image of an enclave of trees, she has physically cut out the areas of shadow. She's based, an almost surreal task considering the dappling shadow created by every branch and every leaf. She's basically photo collaging in reverse, and in so doing, she's creating ideas around positive and negative space. I'm showing the verso of the image as well, so you can see just how surgical her work is. In person, the voids, when you're looking at the photo from the front, are much more immediately readable. I am considering hanging it so you can see both sides, though, and that would make it sculptural. One sidebar about Sue Kim, if you've taken the metro to LACMA, I hope, actually taken the metro to LACMA and then gone one more stop, her work is at the Wilshire and La Cienega spot, so this kind of cut imagery writ large. So now we're moving on to some 3-dimensional work. Another female and LA-based maker, Mina Phillips, already has a hybrid practice. She routinely combines photography with a dense graphite overlay. The graphite adds geometric drawings over her photographs. In this case, the silhouetted figure at the top is photographic, as is the entire sheet of paper, and then the additive graphite. In this new series, she's then added sculptural plinths that are actually completely graphite rub-down works that speak to and mirror the geometry in the wall work. So now we're literally navigating in and out and around the work, and in my opinion, that affects our perception of the photo element, which I posit is no longer static. Katie Shapiro, 2 smaller works by her. I think many of you might have been introduced to her work at Show LA. She had a really nice presentation. I got these before that. In her series, The Other Side of the Moon, she merges personal narrative, abstraction, analog photography, sculptural natural elements, all to create these luminous, multidimensional images that speak to the celestial and the terrestrial, the universal and the personal. Here, multiple moon and ocean images are printed onto glass to create transparency, reflection, depth. These are then slotted into obsidian, a material which holds historical and spiritual associations with healing and protection. And obsidian, if you know your science, is also formed much like glass. She creates these totemic sculptures that ground our macro universe with earthly materiality. In describing her choice of obsidian, Katie has said, "The black sheen evokes the shadow self, buried memory, and emotional excavation." Unlike frame photographs, the viewers are able to peer into and through the images, evoking a more meditative experience, and some might say adding the mystery back into photography. Letha Wilson is the only maker I'm sharing who is not from Southern California. Her practice is rooted in material experimentation. She is neither a photographer nor a sculptor. I've described her as a materialist. So what you're looking at, I should explain, is one work in 3 different positions. So the center, it's hanging on a wall, projecting out. The image to the other side is on a pedestal, as is the image bracketing it, and sort of disobeying pedestal rules with that flap coming down. So the whole work is hinged and viewable from both sides. And there are actually, I believe, 10 more possible positions. So I'm going to have to decide. She's combining industrial materials such as steel and aluminum with photography, printing images of undeveloped natural landscapes onto her sculptures. She uses and challenges her own classical landscape imagery. Think sweeping expanses of the Western desert, or immense, ancient, grooved rock formations in Iceland, and in this case, a verdant palm tree grove taken in Hawaii, which is her birth state, and then forces them to speak to the hard materials we extract from the landscape. And I should just give a gracious shout out to Moskowitz and Bays, whose show in 2023, Sculpture into Photography, introduced me to her work. And that's another title I probably can't use. So this is actually my last slide. I'll keep talking beyond this, but I usually start with this amazing image, because it's what grounded the show, but I'm gonna end with a bang instead. Sorry. Yep, there we go. I think, again, some of you might have been introduced to her work. I know PAC did a tour of the group show up at Descanso Gardens, and Jackie was included in that. Again, I got this before then. Turning number 2 is seen, it's an overhead shot on the left, sorry, and then one that captures its topographical form is adjacent to it. It's a literal excavation into the historical and material loss of LA's built environment. And by that I mean the fast-changing demographics of those who are placed and those who are displaced. In her floor installation, we see a meta image of a hearth without a home, the single-family residence in a working-class Latino neighborhood having been demoed. And it's a little deceiving. The structure you see behind the hearth is the house next door. So that is literally all that has remained of this home. The uneven levels of the work replicates the tension of this changing dynamic in our city. The edges of the photographic frame fragmented, undoing our expectations of photography as fixed. A key conceptual aspect to the work that is vital to Jackie is that incorporates the language of labor. This starts with the artist literally scavenging illegally these bricks, and then her reclaiming and her labor to adhere the photographs in individual brick sizes. And then lastly, part of the acquisition process, we have terms written in to the contract that she is the one who performs the labor. As a Latinx artist herself, that's very important to her. And I'm thinking to try and actually make that a program to watch her installing her work, so the labor is really understood. So you can see there's quite a lot of differing entry points to artists working with hybrid forms in photography. Some are purely formal, like Sheila's that we saw in the beginning, and others are socio-political underpinnings, such as Jackie's. And I haven't shared exactly how I'm going to make the different approaches and intentions coalesce, but that's something you really need to experience off of the screen. And to note that while I highlighted women in this spoiler, I did not write out the many cis men and others who are leaning into photographic materiality. My goal in the end really was simply to broaden most viewers' appreciation of what photography can explore beyond its standard photo sizes, prescribed photo papers, and vetted photo processes. The ways in which photography can embrace abstraction, temporality, and dimensionality, constructs that are more often centered in the world of sculpture. Thank you. And for further reading, there's an amazing book that my colleague Rebecca Morris here contributed to, which is a sort of 360-degree larger discussion than what I shared with you today about the influence of photography into sculpture. It's The Photography Object, 1970, by Mary Stetzer, and I owe some gratitude to her for all of her research and Rebecca's wonderful essay, which brought it into the future. So if you're looking for more information than I gave today, that's your book.
Thank you for your presentation. Did you personally have an early or first experience with a photo sculpture that stayed with you, and did it alter how you experienced other photography moving forward? And if so, could you share that with us?
Yeah. I mentioned sort of my path to understanding that photography could be like sculpture, but I don't think I experienced a photo sculpture or photo object until I came to the museum and saw our Robert Heineken holdings. Yeah, so that's my first one. I mean, he's kind of the godfather, right? I mean, he was sort of a photo buddy of Peter Bunnell's. When Peter would come out to LA, it was visiting Robert and seeing his circle. And when Robert would go to New York, he was trooping around photo shows with Peter. So it makes sense that would be my first entry point. So, yeah. My question to the crowd, I know some people have photo history here. Who were the three women who were included in the 1970 show? Don't Google it. No. Yes, B. Nettles. Ellen Brooks, yeah. Who's answering all these questions? Who's getting all these right? And then, yeah, the great unknown is Leslie Snyder, who I think Cherry and Martin didn't even include because she kind of was off the map. She didn't get to be in the reinstated show. Yes.
This is so cool. I love hearing about this. I'm curious, I'm trying to think through what's bringing these works together, and I guess wondering if it's questions of labor or humor. I guess I'm wondering if I can understand a little bit better to tell me what things you're not including. Like, what were things that you were choosing not to put in?
Right.
Like, how?
That's a good question. Yeah, there's been many tangents of this photo and sculpture dialogue over the years. I think since the mid-2000s, there's been one a year around the world, so I'm not new to this. Some of them really dive deep into the fact that sculpture only exists once it's photographed, and the role of photography in that media. I'm not doing that. That's a whole other topic. I think I'm purposely bringing in a sculpture that is everyday materials. It's not marble, it's not bronze. It's a more messy current definition of sculpture, which sort of marries with the messiness of what is this photo or object or, I don't know if that helps you think about what I'm including. Yeah. So, and they're unique enough objects like the Castillo that you have to sort of spend time with. And as photo people, I mean, anybody in a museum, you just hate that people spend 2.3 seconds in front of something. And I feel like photography really can take a hit because we're so used to seeing images in that format. So it's kind of a 2026 moment to sort of grab photography back and have us spend some time with it. Sometimes it's literally about scale, because photography can go big now. It's not just on our screens. So, yeah, a fourth dimension, yeah.
Hi. Well, and off of that question too, yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me as like, I mean, the next generation, it's very cool, and like the youth, broad strokes, are kind of connecting to photography in this medium, tapestries, ceramics, photo books.
Mm-hmm.
It's like coming full circle again.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to like see your selections, because I think, I don't know, as being a new-ish PAC board member, sorry, it's like, I feel like it's like our job to like try to bring everyone back to photography.
Yeah.
But seeing all of this inspired me, it reminded me of like Zoe's book that she did of Joy and Callis, where it's three-dimensional. And I wonder if you would consider including some photo books within the exhibition.
Photo books, yeah.
Because I don't know if you saw her book of Joanne's, but it's so ultra dynamic, and in itself makes the photography special. And it makes it sort of dimensional. Sorry, Joanne, I let me tell you, you're my favorite.
Yeah, no, photo books.
No, she is like, but no, but that,
Yeah.
seeing the work and seeing the what you're doing, it reminded me of that book and other books that some of the younger publishers are producing that are maybe.
Yeah. No, I'm saving certain things for, and trying to make it real out there, that when the show comes to LACMA. And I think photo books are more sensitive, so they're better displayed at LACMA than at the venues that I have. I didn't really drill down on also why this is so predominant. It's not my theory, it's just out there in the world that there's a lot of digital backlash. So photographers nowadays are in front of their screens nonstop. So of course they're trying to just invigorate their practice and make something then with their hands. Here's a photo object person.
I just was thinking that I'm curious, after looking at this selection, whether or not the idea of daguerreotypes and ambrotypes, photographs that were first encased and could be either still up or laid down. So they do have some three-dimensionality.
Yeah, they were definitely handled too.
Yeah,
in a different way.
And the fact that they also incorporated fabric, velvet, satins, glass, tin, et cetera, et cetera. Did you ever think about incorporating any of that period? Just
No.
out of curiosity.
No. I did not. I sort of start with the 70s moment, and it's all about going forward. I did have some earlier work that is literally two-dimensional Paul Strand that just feel like they are spaces that you incorporate and become dimensional in my mind. I think Sheila Pinkle's as far as I can go in that way, and hers does, it is a sculpture at one point. So the logic holds for that. Also, our collection isn't that rich in that area that you're talking about, the cased work. And one thing I didn't mention, the other restriction for the Art Bridges grant is that it's permanent collection work only. So I can't borrow stuff, but I can keep acquiring to the last minute. And that's the end. No.
Thank you, Eve.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be a white picture, and I am curious because I think I'll
Sorry, say that again.
I think of tapestry as two-dimensional.
Yeah.
But you're saying because it's a long piece that it's sculptural?
I'm saying because its form is a foil sculpture that she photographs. So it starts as a sculpture that she then photographs and then turns into a tapestry. So while the end product, like Sheila's, doesn't have that 3 dimensions, it did at one point. So that's I purposely sort of led you from barely 3-dimensional to finally actually 3-dimensional, which is what Jackie's work is. So there's some of that sort of soft pedaling in the show that's just creating the groundwork.
So have you thought of any garments that have used photographs?
I think I'm pushing it with as many objects. The venues that we have, this is the first time that we're doing anything that's off the wall, which is another working title, off the wall. That's good, yeah. So I'm seriously pushing it as far as their bandwidth or keeping this work safe. Hanging things from the ceiling, things in the corners, yeah. But maybe for the LACMA presentation, I would incorporate dimensional textiles. Sorry.
Hi. I am an artist that is known for her artist books, and it's not a photo book. And all my books are photo-based, and I cannot be recognized by the photo field. And it's striking to me that the photography is still a 2D medium. It's on brick, it's on this, it's on that, but it doesn't get sculptural, really. Do you think there's a path to actually writing this?
Well, I think we're getting into semantics. What do you mean by sculpture? I would say sculpture, I mean, contemporary sculpture is I mean, I said it, I have some sculptural work, has dimension, but it hangs on the wall. So now, is that really sculpture?
In this, in the photo here, it's just a 2D on bricks. It doesn't get 3-dimensional. The photo itself is not.
Right.
The
But
only
she's,
thing you have is the book with the green leaves that gets to move or to actually be 3D. But most of the work I see that is sculptural and photographic is still 2D on a different substrate.
yeah, it essentially, the support becomes something other than a mat. The support becomes 5 bricks deep. So sculptural, dimensional in that sense, but yes, the image resides on a flat surface. I mean,
Well, I think you can make reference to other things like Jerry McMillan's work with that in the
Yeah.
You know, the boxes that you show
Right.
over time, things are definitely three-dimensional.
I mean, but I think using her definition, it's still a flat photo. It just happens to be on the surface. The support happens to be dimensional. But that's how photography works. Right? It's got to be on something flat. Oh, right behind you again.
Hi. As per the restraint of permanent collection, in the archive, there are 2K gnomes. There's no image of them. Are they photo-based or?
I'm not sure which works you're referring to. Okay.
Well, you've got office filter, jacket and pins in parentheses, and then office filter. There are no images in the database
Yeah.
for public
Yeah.
access. So I was just wondering if the works that LACMA has her sculptural qualities in integrated photography.
Yes,
just the
definitely.
power of it.
I've only shown you 6 artists, and my checklist is at 40.
Okay.
Needs to get smaller. I won't name any other names because I
Okay.
don't want it to go out in public yet. The checklist needs to shrink. So some people who might be currently on it
Okay.
might not survive. So yeah. But yeah, it's about 40 works. They all need room to breathe. It's definitely, the focus is on the photo hybrids. So I've reduced the sculptural work as much as I can. And then there is, like Sheila Pinkelson, framed work that goes on the wall. So, but yeah, thank you for pointing that out though.
Do we have time for one more question or any more?
Eve, thank you for challenging us.
Yeah?
It's not that easy to do. So,
Yeah.
but where's the line between sculptural and sets?
Again, I mean, I'm thinking a contemporary artist probably wouldn't even use half of these terms we're using. Sculpture, is it installation art? I mean, pretty much every artist is, a polymath and crosses over several lines of media. So I'm trying not to get too hung up with that because they're all already sort of splitting hairs in how they define themselves. I mean, I called Letho a materialist. It is interesting, yeah. What pops into your head when you think of sculpture? Your average person, and what pops into your head when you think of photo? So I'm trying to fight both of those. Because I think that's where photography is going. It's got to go somewhere else than our phones. So.
Do a follow.
Oh, wait,
So the history of this, I realize you chose 1970 for a reason.
that's when the show happened, yeah.
But people, is there any commonality
I think,
among the people working in this quote-unquote field in terms of their inspiration and their credit,
yeah.
the dark ages before 1970?
I'm not sure if I could speak to the dark ages, but the 70s show was definitely influenced by pop art. There was a lot of pop influence, so there was a through line that went through. But they were all, some of them were really dark, some of them were very humorous. And in the same way, I think that I'm allowing myself to have that big a range. I've got them in 3 sections. I won't tell you what they are. And so they sort of hover near the photo and the photo hybrids that they need to be in dialogue with. So there is some understanding. But yeah, it's a range.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Eve.
Yeah.
Wonderful evening. Thank you all for coming.